All right, well, hello and welcome to the GIT industry panel discussion. It's so lovely to have you in person today, but also online. In fact, we have over 100 people joining us online. So hello, all of you Zoomers. No, Zoomers sounds like boomers. Zoomies, that sounds friendly. Yeah, okay. So welcome. I am your host, Professor Karaskia. Thanks for joining us in this, what we think, we're just going to claim it, the first hybrid panel hybrid event. It's hybrid, it's double hybrid because we have a panelist, Alan Bashad, joining us live in Zoom, and as well as 3 panelists here on the stage. We have audience in person and audience at home. So if this train wrecks, thanks for sticking in there with us, and run away when the flames start. All right. Tonight, we are using an interactive platform called Slido. So not only do I want you to have your phones out, I want you to use them. So you can go ahead and open on any device, slido.com, and you'll enter in the code for our event at 808-108, or use the QR code on the screen. You can access this as well as event information on our website, which will be going into the Zoom chat right now. This Zoom webinar includes live transcription. It should be on by default. However, you can click on the live transcription option at the bottom of Zoom's screen to enable it. You also have control to change the font size and the color and the placement. And if you're watching the recording afterwards, you'll see the live transcript can be opened on the right side of your screen. Our agenda includes 15 minutes for welcoming and acknowledgements, 30 minutes for our panel introductions, followed by 45 minutes of questions and answers. These presentation slides, the links shared, and the recording will all be sent to all participants tomorrow. So you'll notice on the bottom of every slide, we have the slido.com as well as the event information. You can feel free to enter your questions at any time. So if one of our presenters is speaking and you have a great question, go ahead and enter that online and we'll answer all questions towards the end. When you're in that platform, you can also upvote some of the questions. So if you have a question that someone already typed, go ahead and upvote that so we know that more than one person wants to see it. Indigenous land acknowledgements do not exist in the past or historical context. Colonialism is current and an ongoing process, and we need to build our mindfulness of our present participation. I honor and acknowledge that ASU's campuses reside on the ancestral territories of the Indigenous peoples, including the Hohodum and Peeposh Indian communities in the Salt River Valley, whose care of these lands and waterways have sustained and nourished our desert homeland. It's important to understand the long-standing history that has brought us to reside in this land of Arizona and to seek to understand our place within that history. If you'd like to know more about ASU's statement and information about land acknowledgements, I am providing some links in the chat. Thanks so much to Professor Barreau, who is on Zoom tonight, providing all those links in the chat. Thank you. And also Professor Barnett, who is curating all of your questions and answers that are going into Slido tonight. Thank you. Snaps. Oh, I love it. Snaps. I'll take it. Yeah. All right, so another opportunity to go ahead and get Slido up and running. Should be a fully interactive presentation. It's the first time we're using this. So again, thanks for being our guinea pigs. A quick reminder that everyone in this room must wear a mask. If you do not or cannot wear a mask, go ahead and join us online. You're welcome to. And Alan, yep. Be safe at home. Hundreds of miles away. I also want to thank our sponsors. Thanks for Fulton Schools of Engineering Career Center for sponsoring this event. They helped you check in tonight. You can find career resources and help at the FSC Career Center website. The link is in the Zoom chat. It's also on our event website. Thanks, Career Center. And our sponsor is also AIGA Poly, the student organization for design. You can follow AIGA Poly on Instagram and join the team for meetings every Wednesday from noon to 1 in Tech 113, also live on Zoom. Details are in the Slack workspace under the club channel, and these links can be found in the Zoom chat or the event website. Also, you can support the club and events like this by purchasing some GIT merch. So welcome also to all our students and faculty. Thanks so much for your support and coming out tonight. There are over 100 in attendance. So this morning it was like 110, and then slowly it was 125, and now it's up to 150, which is amazing. So thanks so much for joining us. Students were polled during the registration about the workspace settings and the design disciplines that they're interested in, and here are the results. About half of our students in attendance are most interested in working in-house, with a quarter also being interested in freelance and the other quarter in agency. Interesting. And as far as design disciplines goes, 1/3 of students registered for this event are most interested in UX, followed very closely 25% in print and digital design, as well as 25% in website design and development. So that's a little bit about our audience that we have today, both in person and online. And of course, a very special welcome to our panelists. Thank you so much for being here today. Alan Bashaw, Senior Director of Product Experience at Vixxo, joining us online. Also, Eric Torres, Design Director at WL Gore and Associates and Eric Imagines. Danielle Lejuan, Digital Marketing Generalist at Data Driven Marketers and Freelance Digital Marketer and GIT alumni. And Rebecca Baggs, partner at Onward and co-author of SEO for Everyone. And here's a little scoop. We have 3 of those books to give away tonight, thanks to Rebecca. SEO for Everyone is part of the A Book Apart series. So amazing, brand new book. Yeah, welcome. You can find this graphic in the event website. It is going to be a little map of which one of our panelists do what in terms of where they work, agency, in-house, or freelance, as well as their design discipline area. And so if you do have a question that you'd like to put in the questions and answer, and you would like to direct it at one of them, you may do that as well. And here's a little insight. But also they're going to give you an introduction to who they are, what they do, and why that matters. So it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists. Each one was handpicked based on their leadership in the industry and their amazing skills. Each panelist will have up to 5 minutes to tell you about themselves and the work they do. If you have a question for that panelist, go ahead and enter it into Slido. Be sure to insert the name of the panelist that you'd like to submit it to if you have one specifically for a panelist. And we'll hold all those questions till the end. But we'll go ahead and get started with Alan. Alan joins us tonight online. With Vixxo, Alan works across all internal and external channels to define strategy and deliverables to increase growth and revenue. His key skills include critical thinking, math, analytics, psychology, design, and communication to execute on innovation, design, research, and leadership activities. Bonus points for using innovation at ASU. So someone mark that down, give him some extra swag, because obviously that's something that we...
I thought my shirt would help too.
That does. Okay, double his swag, triple his swag. You can connect with Alan on LinkedIn. The link is on the Zoom chat. It'll also be on the event website. Alan, take it away.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm so happy to participate. I think this is my second panel. I did one pre-pandemic. So a little bit about me. I didn't take a traditional route into UX. I kind of stumbled into it with a colleague. Kind of showed me the ropes and ended up becoming a mentor. And some of you may have worked with him before, Tony Kuros, who's working over at GoDaddy. So Tony and I have had a lifelong friendship that started in UX, and we continue to hang out and barbecue and watch football, as well as nerd out on UX things. 20 years later, I spent virtually all my career in B2B, business to business. So it's one business selling software or services to another business. Don't really do a whole lot of B2C, business to consumer, but the two disciplines are completely different, and the way that you approach UX and problems are different as well. With business users, most of them are very driven by tasks or use cases that are triggered from something, like a sale happened, or maybe their boss came over and said, where's my TPS report? Or sometimes it's something they do on a quarterly basis, like financial planning. So users' motivations to consume your software or to conduct a task on your platform are very different. And going in and doing that research and understanding those motivations will help drive better intuitive software. I always say it's important to understand and put yourself in the user's shoes, because once you understand that mental model of your end user, and you bring in the business context that you're trying to provide, you can build a cohesive interaction model. And that's what really makes software intuitive. It's merging both the end user's model, the business model into one. So at Vixxo, we solve problems for other businesses where they can't support their own IFM, Integrated Facilities Management. So I'm staying at a Courtyard Marriott right now in Omaha, and this hotel can't necessarily have staff to fix all the things that could go wrong in this hotel. There's plumbing, electrical, HVAC, heating, it could be food and beverage, coffee. So Vixxo provides services for all of these different customers in these different industries that you see up on the slide here. So the clients use our homegrown platform that we built. It's all web architecture, and they will submit a ticket, which will come through us, and we dispatch it to a technician, which is another side of our business. And we dispatch that technician to the site to repair whatever the issue is. Now, at the forefront of this is the technician's experience on mobile. And this is where I've been spending a lot of time lately, is making sure that how we capture the data of the work that they performed helps provide transparency and visibility to the client, so that they feel comfortable they're not getting price gouged, or that they're getting value out of their service. So there's a lot of different personas that we're having to solve for, as well as internal personas like people on our invoice audit team or people on our dispatch team. If you're interested to learn more about what Vixxo does, you can scan that QRC down there. We are hiring, and we're always looking for talented people from ASU. I've hired several in the past. From my role is a little bit hybrid nowadays. I've spent most of my career in UX doing research and interaction design. But nowadays I'm also wearing my product hat, my product management hat. So I'm spending a lot of time with prospects, with clients, trying to understand and articulate what their problem to solve is. It's fun because I get to wear my researcher hat and, conduct a journey map or some ethnographic research and build affinity diagrams with the clients and prospects to help contextualize their business problems. Then I get to bring those problems back to Vixxo, share that with the rest of leadership, build a strategy and a roadmap to execute on what that should be. So down on the right, now I'm wearing my UX hat. I more or less follow design thinking methodologies. So making sure you understand the problem and empathize for your populations. Start defining some of the requirements. Work on your interaction design as well before you start brainstorming too much. And then start prototyping, testing. And then once you have something that you feel is solid and it doesn't carry a lot of risk, execute it. So work with your engineering team and build out that software.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan, for sharing a little bit about what you do. And I'm going to go quadruple points for putting a T-Rex in your QR code. So what we have now is our first poll of the evening. So go ahead and open up slido.com, looking at event number 808108. Panelists, you are 1,000% welcome to join in on this. What is your favorite primary or secondary color? blue, green, violet, red, orange, or yellow, and it has a live interaction. Enjoying that. Not surprising, blue is in the lead at this time. Pretty much falling right on the cool colors, blue, green, violet. Oh, we have a cool audience tonight. Orange, green. It was the secret color of the day. If you missed it, on Thursdays we wear green. All right, looks like we're coming to a close. There are just a few votes coming in, but almost 40% saying blue, some form of blue is your favorite color. And that is very consistent with the general population. Blue is generally people's favorite color. There's psychology behind that, but we're not here to talk about that tonight. All right, thanks for joining us in our first poll. And now we have our next guest. In addition to being a GIT alumnus, Danielle develops digital marketing strategies, writes blogs, reviews website analytics, and implements SEO best practices. She also designs websites, reports, case studies, and graphics for social media and ads. You can connect with Danielle on LinkedIn. The link is in the Zoom chat and on the event website. Danielle.
Hi. Is this on? Hello? Hello?
I can hear you
Hello.
on the Zoom.
You can hear her on Zoom.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm Danielle, and I'm graduated from ASU GIT in 2018, and I did a couple things before graduating, like I had a UX internship, and then after graduating, I worked at GoDaddy, and I updated websites, and I also did some graphic design, like freelance on the side. Oh, I can hear myself now. Sorry, that's weird. And now I work in digital marketing. I'm a digital marketing generalist at Data Driven Marketers, and it's really fun. It kind of combines critical thinking and like creative problem solving. So that's really cool. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of SEO and keyword research, and I also do some graphic design as well. And I don't, oh, right, I forgot my slides, sorry. So this is just like some examples of what I do. Keyword research is kind of a long process, but it kind of starts with this tool that we use. It's called SEMrush or SEMrush. And it's really cool because it gives you all this data about keywords and what people are searching, and it helps you determine like what you want to target so people can find you when they're searching. And I think there was also on that slide before a graphic that I did for her Facebook ad. So that's just a little bit of graphic design that I do. And then this slide, we have a lot of data. It looks a little scary, but it's not, I promise. It's really all these analytics from websites and clients that we have. Basically, I look at how a site is performing and I give recommendations based on what I can see in the data. So these are just some dashboards, and it just shows you like where people are coming from, if it's a mobile device, if it's desktop, and what the popular pages are on your website, and keywords too that are popular that are help people find you. I also put together some like training in marketing, and those I guess that's the right side, has just like examples of some stuff that I put together about like organic traffic and like conversions, and kind of like how to interpret data and all that fun stuff to help you give recommendations on websites and stuff. And yeah.
Excellent. Danielle, thanks so much for joining us. And I have a feeling we're going to have lots of SEO discussions this
Yeah.
evening for sure. All right, it's time for our next poll. So I encourage you to pick up your phone, go to slido.com, event 808108. Your question is, rank the pre-1950 design periods, your favorite to your least favorite: Art Deco, American Kitsch, Swiss, Arts and Crafts, Art Nouveau, and Victorian. Oh. Not seeing the live. Is it going up? Okay. Yeah, I have a feeling Art Deco. I've seen a lot of Art Deco work from y'all recently. Low on the arts and crafts. No one for arts and crafts. Okay, fair enough. If I'm watching HGTV, that's all I'm going to talk about is arts and crafts. That was so cute. What's that? It's 808108. Oh, we're slowing down on the poll here. Looks like Art Deco, Modern, Futurism, Victorian, Art Nouveau, and Arts and Crafts coming in last. Interesting. Interesting. I would have said a couple of years ago, Art Nouveau was way higher than this, right? Exactly. I'm surprised too. That turned quickly. We went straight from Art Nouveau to just Art Deco, just all the bling. You're glad. It's hard to create in an Art Nouveau kind of style. You have to have that style. They have to have that kind of illustration happening. Excellent. All of this poll data, by the way, will be included on the event website as of tomorrow. All right, let's welcome our next panelist. For Eric, creativity is entertainment, enterprise, and an escape all at once. His purpose is making imaginative experiences for people in search of the good creativity to bring into the world. You can find links to Eric's portfolio and Instagram in the Zoom chat and event website. Eric.
Hello, hello. Sounds like I can hear a mic happening. One request I'd have, Christina, if I may, is before any slides, if you give me 2 minutes before you get into those, to kind of go into a couple things real quick. Thank you so much. So I'll tell you 3 things in the 5 minutes that I have. The first one is where I started in terms of my schooling, and that was at a 2-year associate's degree program with a school that is now defunct and not around. I wear this as a badge. It's been a reminder of how much I need to press on in my learning every day and in every role that I've played a part in. The second thing is that I work for W.L. Gore and Associates by day, so that's in-house. I have worked agency side, I have worked as a freelancer, and I found myself desiring to work with a team more closely. So about 10 years ago, I started a process of trying to get hired at W.L. Gore and Associates. And after about 1,300 applicants, it came down to 4 of us, and I was selected. This is after 4 months of interviews. So it's been a long process. It was a long process to get there, but very well worth it. Now, Gore is hiring much more generously because, as you can imagine, there are many positions available in all sorts of industries right now. So the third thing I'll tell you, and which relates to my slides, is that on the side from my in-house adventures, I work in completely, as I like to describe it, 100% otherworldly nonsense. So I create things that have very little logic to them, lots of color, and it's a huge dichotomy and contrast between my day job, which you can see more about at goremedical.com, as design director for that content, versus the small Etsy shop that I run for Eric Imagines. And this all stems from something one of my professors told me when I was in the process of getting my 2-year degree. He said, never make your day job your last hope for creativity. And that was a long time ago. I relate to what our other panelist was bringing out here about his journey to get where he's at. It is something that I look back in 20 years past in the blink of an eye. So that's where I'm at. That's who's up on the stage. I can talk about any of these things that are on my outline in terms of the print and design of, or print design and digital design, and then all the other things that I've been privileged to start learning in my role. So I'll stop my little ramble there, and I thank you so much. Part of the mask thing is that you can't see me smiling, and I can't see you smiling, but I'm smiling. Big dumb smile up here the whole time. So thanks so much for having me here.
I have to rely on like my squinty eyes. Like if I'm squinting, you know that I'm smiling. Yeah. Or sometimes I do commentary. That's the best part of watching things on closed caption when they have like jaunty music and I'm like grinning wildly. Here is some of Eric's work, which he added in terms of game design, world building, some really fun doodles. And some of that work that he was telling you about that's rich in color and very different from a day job. The coloring books, Eric, come on.
Thank you. There is one last slide there that might have some relevance to another thing I could mention briefly is I'm challenged right now in a class I'm taking online in the UK through Inky Goodness, which is a shameful plug for them, because I would recommend that to anyone looking to brand themselves and work on their identity. After so long working on mine, I'm still working on it. But they had us go through this exercise, and this was an exercise in really taking a pulse of where you're at right now in the industry as a designer. And in my role, that's something that is easy to overlook because I have many other responsibilities during the day. So I've been taking time out to revisit, you guys, what I'm about and what's important to me. And so that's what you're seeing here.
I love this. If this was the branding on a box of cereal, I would so buy it. It would probably have marshmallows, right? Yeah, definitely. I love it. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. All right, our next poll. Here we go. Bring up your Slido. We're on event number 808 to 108. What's your go-to sketching device? Sketchbook, computer, tablet, paper, Wacom, Starbucks napkins. Where are you at? Where do you put your stuff, your ideas when they're coming into your head? Sketchbook, a lot of sketchbooks. Good. Starbucks napkins. Yes. No one has a Wacom. Well, of course, we're students, right? We can't afford that. If you remember Ari Faye, fantastic, outstanding student. She just got herself a Wacom tablet and literally Christmas morning. Fantastic. Can't wait to use it. Her, not me. I'm not going to go to her house and use it. That's weird. All right, looks like it's slowing down here. Almost 50% sketchbook, followed by tablet, and then closely followed by paper. Interesting. As tech folks, we tend to be around tech all the time, but I do feel like this tactile paper pencil when I'm getting my ideas out somehow is always the go-to, is always where I kind of put my ideas. Excellent. All right. And last but certainly not least, we have Rebecca Baggs. Whoops, I went. Boop, boop. Rebecca is a content and UX expert and co-author of SEO for Everyone. Her mission is to help teams overcome some of their toughest web and collaboration problems. She's also a partner at Onward, where the team is committed to helping people bridge the gap between content design and technical SEO. Welcome.
Thanks. So good to be here with real people and Zoom people. I mean, I love Zoom people too. I'm mostly one myself. So yes, I'm Rebecca. And, you know, back in the day when I got into working and graduated, there was no courses on UX. So I got into my UX work and content design work in a very winding way. I started out in marketing and I was working for a small software company that made something like Salesforce. It's a CRM platform. And, you know, I just wasn't that into writing the emails on how to sell it. But what I was into doing, which is what they hired me to do, by the way, I was into improving the experience. I would hear from customers on how they were frustrated on something or other in the interface. And I'd think, gosh, we should talk to them. Or maybe we should record people while they're using it and see where things go wrong. And eventually I had a boss who was like, I think what you're doing is called user experience design, and you should look into that. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I don't have to write any more emails telling you to buy this. I can just fix it. And so, by the way, that boss actually went on to become a UX lead at Tesla. So he was a really great mentor to have. And I'm so glad that he encouraged me to look into user experience and content. I actually got really into content strategy, which is the content side of user experience design. Because if you think about it, no one goes to interact with anything, whether it's a product, an app, a website, for pictures and colored squares. They're there for the information, right? Not so much the words, but they're there to accomplish a task, to learn something, to do something. And all of that has to do with content. So that's where I sit when it comes to thinking about design, is I'm helping to think through what is the substance, right? So the information architecture, the nomenclature, the labels, how content is organized and shaped and related, the structure on a page, the hierarchy of how something comes together, the design modules that we're going to use to represent that information. I'm thinking through the workflow. What kind of a team is it going to take to sustain this? Where does design fit into this process? Where does, do we need to collaborate with front-end development? And we're thinking through all of the different roles that actually touch and shape the content experience. And governance, which is what we're creating actually appropriate for the team that has to make it? Because you can make something really fancy, but if there's no one to update it and to keep it, alive and to iterate on it, then you've probably just made something that's going to be crap in, I don't know, 2 months. So thinking through all of those things is the content strategy side of what I do. And you want to move on to the next slide? But there's also, whoops, actually, go back. Sorry about that. Nope. Just joking. All right. So, but there's also the kind of content design side. So there's the strategy side, which is where you're thinking about all of it and you're kind of making sure that the content uses everything it can to meet both the business goals and the user needs. But then there's the content design side. And the content design side is where we're thinking about how can we get the right content, the right time, in the right way, in the right place for those users. And that takes starting with research, right? So we're interviewing people, we're looking into search data. So, she mentioned that she looks at keyword targeting. Keyword targeting is definitely one way that you can use search data, but Google is a database of human psychology, right? What do you do when you have a weird rash? You Google it. What do you do when you need to navigate a scary political conversation with your mom? You Google it. We Google everything. In fact, I've read studies that say if we were to look at our Google search history, Google can actually sometimes predict what kinds of health conditions you have, or even mental disorders based on, or what's going on in our life based on our searches, right? So there's another way that we can use search data, and it's in a helpful way, not in a scary way, okay? It's in a way of saying, what do people need? What are their intentions, their search intent, and how can we make sure that the things that we design actually align to those intentions, not just in a search context. If you do it in a search context for SEO, yes, you'll probably rank better and have a more performant site that gets more traffic. But you can also use search data to improve products, and you can use it as a really cost-effective way of user research, which is what I do too. So anyways, you figure all that out, you help people clarify goals. What are we setting out to do? What's the purpose of this, right? How does that align to what users are trying to do? Does it? Can we make that work? And then you start to create content and you test it and you iterate it. And so that's kind of at a very high level what that content design process looks like. All right. I mentioned the user interviews. Yes, I wrote a book with Chris. Chris, raise your hand. He's my best bud and my business partner, and we wrote a book together. He's definitely the technical SEO mind. I really don't know that much about SEO. I mean, I do now because of Chris, but I really know a lot about people. And so he does all the magic when it comes to analyzing search intent and data. And I make sure that not only do we know what's happening with data, which is so important, right, when it comes to understanding data, but we understand why. So we're talking to those real people, you know, interviewing over the phone, doing usability tests online. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure. Oh, yes. And then we're using design tools, all kinds of design tools, you know, from user stories to personas. I actually prefer archetypes to personas. If you're interested in that, talk to me afterwards. And also journey maps to help understand where someone's beginning and all of the different steps that they take through that entire journey, not just a purchase journey. A lot of times people think of user stories as marketing funnels. It's not the same thing. The user journey is all the different steps and considerations and emotions and tasks that people do when they're interacting with a service or an organization, right, to accomplish their goals. And you can match that up with search data too. So anyways, those are some of the design artifacts that I participate in. Another one is in content design is core modeling. Highly recommend an article. It's from Ida Allen on A List Apart. It's called something about core modeling. Just look up core modeling, A List Apart. It'll come up. And it's all about making sure that every page that we design on a web meets a real need and aligns to user goals. And it's a collaborative process that we use with designers and developers and stakeholders to make sure we get everything right. So that's kind of a smattering of the work that I do. It ends up touching everything on an experience from, if you look on one end there, there's the information architecture to the actual modules that we might be using, the kinds of content that are in that modules, to even informing on this page, what's the right kind of imagery? What's the right kind of illustrations? Is it going to align to someone's search intent and what they need for that page? And I help kind of tie all of those things together in a collaborative way with people who have very different disciplines than I do. Oh, yes, and that's the book. We brought 3 of them. And so the first 3 people who ask a question that has to do with what I work on, you'll get a book. So, and if you're on Zoom, I feel bad. We didn't bring ebooks, but if you happen to be on Zoom, we have codes. So maybe Christina, you could help me get their contact information and we can make that happen if it happens to be someone who's not here in person. That's it. Thanks.
Definitely. Thank you. I'm psyched that you brought some books with you. I'm definitely not going to jump in front of someone and take it. Probably. All right. And now it's the time that you've been waiting for. You've been entering questions this entire time, and they've been moderated. And we are going to take some live questions. So panel, thanks so much for telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do. And now get ready for the questions. Again, if you are looking for the list of the expertise areas for each one of our panelists, you can find that on our event website. That is a link in the chat. Let's go ahead and get some questions. All right. Here's the top question we have from Anonymous. When or how did you figure out what discipline within GIT was for you? I'm going to guess that's for Danielle.
Yeah. So my journey into GIT was kind of weird because I switched my major like 4 times before I got into it. But I started actually in the graphic design program, the one in Tempe, but decided that wasn't really for me. And what I really was interested in was web design at the time. I didn't even know UX was an option, but
fun fact, I don't think it was. When you
it probably wasn't. Yeah. But I was really interested in web design and like HTML, CSS. So I discovered GIT through an advisor, and they recommended that. And then when I chose a focus area, I don't know, I guess I thought I'm already interested in HTML and CSS, so this was just the natural way to go. And as far as like a secondary focus, I actually took some classes in just like regular print and digital stuff. I also did some art history stuff that wasn't really related, but yeah.
Great, thanks. Our next question also comes from Anonymous. How have you seen or expect sustainability to impact digital design in terms of data transfer, electricity, and carbon emissions from data centers? I'm going to guess Alan might be the most equipped to answer that. Oh, and he's like, nope, I'm gone. Hard pass.
I went too fast to unmute and I ended up swiping up and almost locked my screen. This is an interesting because from my perspective, I think it starts coming down to latency to get the data you need to load the page or for the user to get the information they need. So when I'm looking at it from a design perspective, it's making sure that the most important elements on the page are loaded first, and providing some kind of progressive disclosure to let the user know that, you know, something that they did, and provide some kind of context that they're expecting something, that we received the request and that we're working on it. That's such an interesting question. I haven't, like in my industry, I haven't been spending a whole lot of time with what's happening with data centers, other than I've, you know, some reading that I've had where they're moving into the oceans. So I know Microsoft's pretty big about sticking their data centers down into the sound underwater. But in general, I think my industry is going to get impacted more by crypto because there's a lack of hardware out there.
Interesting. Yeah, really good.
I don't know if that's it's a great answer. I don't know if any of the other panelists might have anything interesting to add on that.
I am not an expert in sustainable design, but I know someone who is, and he wrote a book called Sustainable Design, also from a book apart. So highly recommend you check that out. And I know that he has a lot of free information. You certainly don't have to buy his book to understand how he approaches sustainable design. And that's all I'll say on the subject matter.
Excellent ad. Yeah, if you go to abookapart.com, you can get actually the whole bundle of all of the books for kind of one low price. We actually have all of the books in the Device and Usability Learning Lab, although not some of the newer ones. It's an older edition that we have here on campus. Thanks for giving that one a stab. Also, sustainable design, also kind of one of the topics that we'll be seeing more of, and certainly have been explored in different areas. So thanks for giving that resource as well. And thanks, Alan. All right, next question for in-house and agencies. What's the best way to get an interview? Eric, let's start with you.
Yes, so I'll definitely speak from the perspective of Gore and some of the things I've learned as design director there, or one of the design directors. I don't want to oversimplify this particular answer, but one of the top things I would say is to present initiative and show your initiative. You might not believe this, but part of what got me my role at Gore was the nonsensical work I was doing in my free time and in the time I had carved out. They looked at that and I was very surprised to know how much weight initiative held with Gore in terms of who they wanted to hire. They wanted to hire folks with entrepreneurial spirit, because those folks are usually enterprising on their own and self-directing and self-disciplined. And so that's one thing that I think is very important. Gore is a material science company. So from the standpoint of all the different types of things Gore is producing, they're the kind of company that has things in all these things that you may not understand that is even there. So a grill on a car, the copper wiring on the Mars rover, astronaut spacesuit technology, firefighter suits. But the types of folks that work at Gore are very diverse. Engineers, I've worked with mathematicians, I've worked with doctors and physicians. So coming back around, if you can show some initiative through your cover letter, your resume, and your portfolio or your set of work, I think you're going to have an advantage. I don't know what other panelists might add.
I would agree with all of that. The resume is usually the first step I take into looking at a candidate, how they present themselves, how they tell the story of themselves, and how the resume is laid out. You know, everyone's always trying to get the right information on the front page, and you know, I've seen a lot of instances where people have tried to cram too much in one, or they've tried to design like a dashboard and rate themselves. It's okay to be creative, but be mindful how you're presenting yourself, because that's, you know, that's how I'm consuming it. And then all the ancillary things as well, your social media presence. Because I do a lot of in-house and it's B2B, the people representing Vixxo need to follow the culture that we have in-house. And the nature of the business dictates, you know, sometimes we need people that fit that certain mold. So our security team does do security audits, and they go out and they look at what people have been doing in social media. So that's an extension beyond your resume and your portfolio as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And certainly some of the things that we talk about with students a lot is your resume. Does it need to be designed, or does it need to be professional? Like, is there there's no one answer to that to me. And so what I'm hearing is it's got to be a little bit of both. You should show your creativity, but also keep in mind your professionalism, something we work on all the time. Excellent.
I do want to mention real quick, the portfolio, I like seeing nitty gritty and I like seeing sketches. I don't like seeing everything polished in a portfolio, because I want to see the design steps you take to solve that problem and come up with a hypothesis or a design.
How many times did I say that today here in my class? I literally say it every single day. Yeah, absolutely. Show your process. Excellent. Another question for Danielle. How well did the GIT program prepare you for your career? Be honest. It's not like the entire faculty is sitting here watching you. And were you confident by graduation that you were able to find a quality job in the field? It's a great question. You should answer honestly.
Yeah, that is a great question. I would say yes and no. So I think it definitely gave me the tools I needed, but I think you have to keep learning and pushing yourself too. So you know, when I was applying for more design focused jobs, I really needed to up my portfolio. I had student work in there, but I also added side projects because I felt like that kind of showed initiative as well. And then I think like GIT definitely gave me everything I needed, but it was up to me to take the initiative to keep going. So
I did not coach that answer, but it was perfect. Yeah. Your money is under the table right there. Eric, how do you keep a sense of wonder and enthusiasm even when having a day job?
Okay, so I think one of the things is keeping my desk work for Gore separate from my little studio space for Eric Imagines. It's been important for me, at least, to keep them separate. I've worked at home for about 8 years remotely, full time, and I was asked to champion our remote work initiative 8 years ago or 7 years ago at Gore. And looking back, I'm glad that we did that then and not in the past couple of years. But coming back to the question, the answer to that for me is that I make time that I set aside for goofing off. It's guilt-free goof off time. That's what I call it. There's no guilt. There's nothing else pressing. And this is something that's not always easy to maintain because I have responsibilities and people who rely on me. So it's not like my whole side time from my day job is messing around and goofing off. But when I have that time set aside, I protect it very, very, very.
It's a precious commodity.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not something I can let evaporate because, you know, I don't know. I think looking back, looking at our record as professionals, as you guys go into creative fields you're going to go into, like, no one's going to remember. You're not going to really look back one day and think about that web banner you made in 19 whatever or 2015, that series of web banners you did for such and such, you're going to look back at what you were able to do with your skills, and I think that speaks to me. It's an important part of why I keep it front and center.
Yeah, fun fact, none of these kids were born in 19 anything. So a few. All right. How many, just raise your hand, or have a day job and some sort of outside thing that you work on, even if you're students? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's how you kind of keep it sane, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Rebecca, what does a typical day look like for you as a UX designer?
It's different all the time, depending on the kind of problem that I'm solving, right? So I used to work at an agency, and those days looked very different. I collaborated with a big team, and we would work on projects, sometimes fly out to see clients and do interactive workshops, either with those clients to help clarify what are the goals of this thing that we're making, right? Or I might be sitting next to a visual designer thinking about how is the information and content going to flow through this interface, and what are the first steps the person's going to take, and the next step, and what information do they need and to be delivered, and how. And we would actually sit side by side and do those things. Or I would collaborate with Chris, who would be looking at search data and saying, man, most people are describing things this way, and you're using this other way to say it that no one uses. Can we please modify this to be more plain language based on the search data I'm seeing? Today, I'm a consultant for like the past 6 years, so I work from home. And a typical day like today, I sat on a design sprint with a creative director and a design team, and they were going through and showcasing a new mega menu. And we were looking at, is the language aligning to some of the things that we know are true from the search data? We're also looking at performance. They were thinking about embedding images in some areas of the nav. And we were thinking about, okay, well, we know that could really ding the performance and the speed of the site. What are some things in the workflow and the governance that we might put in place to manage how those are uploaded and how often and what size they are? And we talked about that as a team. I also did a couple of user interviews today. I'm doing a study for a client right now. And so I had a couple phone calls where I talked to people about how they're using a website, what their goals are, what kind of problems they're looking to solve, how they search for information. And then I sent a bunch of emails. Okay. But that's my typical
That's
day.
a big part of the day, emails, just hours of emails. Eric, did you also mention you have been working from home for 7 years? Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, a quick day to day is definitely waking up and starting to address the needs of the designers I work with and make sure that I'm removing barriers for them. In the role I have right now, I'm partly a project manager that has design collaborations at times. So it's a mix of, I used to be the one doing that illustration or laying out that booklet or web graphic, but as I've grown there, it's now transferred into really directing and kind of being a little busy bee, going from flower to flower, making sure everyone has got a little bit of support on what they've got moving. So yes, it's a very decentralized team, and I have folks I work with in Australia, Japan, and Germany, as well as locally in the US.
So is it fair to say that most of the panel, even before the pandemic, had some sort of work from home aspect of their job, working remotely with people all over? Yeah. Alan? Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Alan, you're traveling. When you're back in town, are you in the office or you work from home some days?
Well, pre-pandemic, I was in the office because we had a lot of collaboration sessions with the team. So it was database architects, information architects, the UX team. So the collaboration all in the same room and just whiteboarding out, problems and solutions was a lot of fun. But now it's all done on Miro and it's done virtually. Right now, the travel is more about leisure than business.
Oh,
but pretty soon I will be embarking on a business research trip. So
Excellent. How did you get your first GIT related jobs? So not specifically for Danielle, but how did you get your first job in kind of the field you're in now? Who wants to start that one? Eric, take it.
So first design job I had was creating little banners for bars and restaurants that said $5 shots, Wednesday night, ladies night, etc. And I would, and what it was, what's interesting about that first job I had was that it was very high stress because I needed to produce a lot of these banners, but I also couldn't make any mistakes, and I also needed to be meticulous in how I did them. So why do I kind of throw myself out there to mention that? It's that I never thought that I would be where I'm at now, which is with much responsibility and at times feeling a little too irresponsible for the type of responsibilities I have. But it's just another, I think for all of us, we can do that. Once you start on your path, there's no telling where you're going to go. All the different adventures you'll have and learning different roles and different things that you'll grow in. It's really cool that way.
It's like parenting. How am I qualified to do this? How are they letting me get away with this? Yeah, absolutely. Alan, did you have something to add? It looked like your first job in the industry.
My first job was just, I networked with the right people. Sorry, I had a little gnat flying around. I was trying to get it away from me.
That's okay. We definitely weren't judging you at all.
I'm animated here, all right?
Rebecca, how did you get your first job in the field?
So the first job that was in earnest, really involved in user experience was after that software job, because I was a marketing person in that job, but I knew I wanted to work in user experience design, and I was also very interested in branding at the time. There was a little boutique agency here in town called 40, which I'm sure some of you will remember. And it was so hard to get a job with them. They were so cool. They had little green jackets and they did design sprints all the time. And they were so involved with the design community. And oh man, I just wanted to work with them so bad. And it was hard. So this is from an agency perspective, getting a job in an agency maybe looks a little different than at in-house. It's more about, showing up where those people are, getting to know them. If they're involved in industry events, you get involved in those industry events. If they're writing articles and contributing to, things online, get involved with that, ask questions. I would tweet back and forth conversations with them and just generally show that I was really interested in the work that they were doing. And finally, one day, a job opened up and I applied, and they knew me, because we had been hanging out and we had gone to lunch and they had seen me at design events in town. And so I don't know, I was sure they weren't going to hire me. I think I went home and cried. I was like, I totally blew it after my first interview, but they did. And it was really, really great and enlivening and a super foundational part of the work that I do now.
Excellent. Question for Danielle. What was the most important thing outside of a class as a GIT student to do in order to land a job after graduating? Those not in a class activities that helped you land a job.
That's a really good question. I guess I did a lot of work on my own. I did a lot of side projects and I tried to do freelance as well. I don't know. That's a tough question because I guess I never really did graphic design in-house or at an agency. I mostly freelanced when I graduated, and now I have some graphic design experience too with my digital marketing job. So I do that as well. But I'm sorry, I think I'm getting off topic.
But you went to events like this one.
Yeah, I did. I did go to events like this, and I just tried to learn about the industry a lot, and I think that really helped. I hope that's a good answer.
Excellent. Do we have another question? Eric, what were the main duties of your job? What are the main duties of your job at Gore? As a design director, how much creative freedom do you have? And a three-part question. What did you do with those freedoms? What are your duties? How much creative freedom do you have? And what are those freedoms? I know I said duties. Stop laughing.
I wasn't going to laugh and then I did. Sorry.
That's fair.
Okay, so the roles that I perform right now are helping to direct our designers in the production work they're doing. I have a lot of meetings to collaborate with our agency partners because we work with agencies around the US. So that looks like being on a lot of calls and going through a lot of concepts and talking about, do these concepts meet the creative direction that our creative director has, decreed should be implemented? And it's a lot of articulating of ideas. It's about listening to people. Sometimes saying, I don't know, I want to think about this, and giving yourself some time to think about some things. Other practical things I'm involved with are reviewing print requests for quotes from printers, looking at invoicing from different partners in the digital space in terms of the media buys we're doing. So I have kind of again, just this kind of mixed bag of things that I'm involved with, and the whole time trying to not start doing the work myself, because that's
what I was just going to ask. So it seems the higher the position you're going, the more meetings and more talking about work you're doing, but someone else is doing the work.
Yes. So it's really, I've learned a lot from so many people, but the thing is really trying to maintain a selfless approach to what I'm doing, because it's very, I have a tendency to really want to take something. If I sense someone's struggling, I want to get in there and start, getting in the trenches, and it's a no for us. We want to make sure that we're giving people a chance to do their best work and then helping them along those lines. The other part of the question was, what did I do with the creative freedom that I have? And I think that's the thing I was talking about jokingly a little about being sometimes feeling a little bit immature for the responsibilities I have, because if I stop too long and think about it, and I think about the budgets that I'm really trying to work within, I think about the people that are relying on me around the world, the different partners we have, it can be overwhelming. But the creative freedom is really something that I've been collaborating with our creative director on. So applying the freedom within the boundaries is really something I look to her to kind of help guide me. Even though I'm in a director role right now, I feel like I really need my creative director to help guide my efforts and direct my actions so that I'm effective. And we rely on each other. And I think that's what it comes down to, is you don't take for granted the creative direction or creative freedoms you have. You ask questions, you test things, and sometimes you have to tell people this is going to be an experiment. We're going to try something and see what happens after we get data.
Do you feel like Eric Imagines came out of like an answer to your day job in that outlet for your creativity?
Yeah, I think in part it did. There were just things I wanted to do with my time and with the tools I learned that I know that I'm not going to be able to do those things working for a clinical division as I work for Gore. And rather than beat myself up over wanting to be in maybe game design more fully or wanting to be into another industry, I decided to start a little company and enterprise and do it myself. And it's what I've done. It's not what others might do. I know folks who've quit their jobs to start full-time another effort, and that's got merit. But for me, this has really worked for me, and I've had on the job training in-house as well as outside applying a lot of what I've learned.
Excellent. Let's switch gears to freelance. If you're doing any freelance, how do you find those freelance projects? I'll let anyone who's taken freelance kind of go. Looks like Danielle's going to answer that one.
I really just get projects by like word of mouth, which is kind of weird if you think about it, because there's so much you can do with like social media. But most of my clients are like, my cousin is like, oh, my cousin does graphic design or web design or whatever. And then she tells her friends or people that she knows. And that's really how I've gotten my clients. But I will say, I know some people have had success on Upwork. I personally haven't, but that's possibly an option.
Do you feel like those freelance jobs that you get that are from kind of a friend of a family or a friend of a friend are better than the clients that you get more organically or cold call? Or-
Yeah, I would say the people that it's like word of mouth that family or friends recommend, they want to work with you, and they like they have looked at your style, so they're familiar with that, and they want to, they want to work with you. So
Good. Eric, we're very interested to know more about that interview that took for 4 months. What was the interview like, being 4 months long, but also being in such a large applicant pool? Did you know how many people were in it? No, not till
No.
after.
I was just very frustrated that it was taking so long, because, we want to know things. We want to know how we did. And when you don't hear for a while, it's easy to climb ladders and of inference and think I didn't do good, or maybe they're just not going to call me.
Did they give you an idea of the timeline at all? Or was it just like, thanks, we'll be in contact, and 3 months later?
Yeah, they did give me an idea. We'll be in touch with you within a month, or we'd be in touch with you within 3 weeks. And they met all of those. They did all of those things. I think the interview process was an initial interview with 3 folks, and then another interview with a team of 6 people, and then another follow-up interview with those same 6 people plus 2 leaders, and then another interview with a last interview with just 3 people. So it was very up and down, and it was something I just had to surrender to the process, trust it, let myself be carried along like a little leaf down the stream. Wherever it was going to lead, I needed to just see what that outcome was, and try to be patient during the process.
I'm curious because we were talking earlier about this and how in a recession, people tend to be looking for a generalist, a jack of all trades, someone who can do everything. And then in good times, it's a specialist for everything. Was it in the recession that you were looking for during going through this huge process? Were they looking for like the diamond?
So it was interesting. It was 2011, and we had already come out of the 2007, 2008 downturn. Was there a web bubble during that time too in some way? I can't remember, but an online sort of. I think looking in terms of the timing of it and then comparing to now, I know the Great Recession is a thing. It's been going on. There's reasons that are different these days for how folks are looking for work than when I was initially at and found this at Gore. But during the time that it was very much to where I needed to show what my skills and abilities were. I needed to be able to articulate my skills and abilities and be comfortable talking with a group of people. And, I needed to be able to answer questions that were asked of me. And I think, different folks are going to struggle differently with that process. The in-house route is a more stable route at times, but it does require collaboration and being ready to socialize with a team potentially. And I think those are some skills that I'm sure everyone here is involved with in one way or another with their schooling or current jobs they have.
Yeah. So the next question is about motion graphics. I'll be graduating soon, looking for my first motion graphics job to begin my career. Where would you recommend getting started? And I believe Eric is maybe our panelist that has some experience in motion graphics. And I think maybe I'll modify that question to say, would you look specifically in motion graphics for a job, or for that as part of your job? Where might you look?
So initially, I would say that some of the places to look, I'd be starting with social media and finding the people doing the things that I want to do, and then looking for ways to, if I can do those things, show them and show those folks that I might be interested in trying to get in with. As Rebecca mentioned, it's really great to be able to establish a relationship with someone, with a coffee or a lunch, and talk to them about what they're doing, talk to them about how they're doing things, and then keep growing that little network until you can incorporate more people in the network, that you can then have opportunities that just organically happen, where someone will say, hey, I need this set of animations done, and I'm looking for someone. Do you want to take a crack at it? So I think it's putting yourself where the people are and knowing who those folks are that you want to do that type of work, and then in your portfolio and your examples that you have, showing the type of work you want to do, and giving them opportunity to look to you.
Yeah, and I wonder if there isn't sort of thinking more broadly about what kind of companies need motion graphics, and maybe flipping that to what kind of company doesn't need motion graphics for something. And so maybe not an agency necessarily, a boutique agency that looks specifically at motion graphics, but really broadening to think about how motion graphics might really benefit different types of companies, especially medical. I mean, I'm sure you didn't like leave your college experience going, I hope I can get a job at Gore. You know what I mean? I hope, and you don't think about kind of those companies that are out there that aren't specifically in design or aren't specifically creative, but they have a need for graphics and motion graphics. So it might be the kind of thing where you find the company that you like and you dig deep and find out who's doing what there and kind of representing your work.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to make sure I can offer some more direct answer if I can. But like Gore uses motion graphics to communicate, for instance, how a medical device might be seated in the anatomy. So there could be a device that needs to be animated. It's static. We need to have this device animated in the anatomy to show deployment. That's just one example, but you all know, like the Nikes of the world and the Targets of the world and everyone else producing digital content needs animations. They need motion graphics to some level, whether it's for internal use and communications or consumer facing. So I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. It just takes getting online and digging them up and looking who's doing what and what do I want to do that's like that, and okay, I'm going to look there.
We had a speaker a few years ago say, do some light stalking on LinkedIn, but find out who's doing what you're doing and where they're doing it. And you can get that easily online without crossing too many lines. Next question for Alan. What do employers look for in a UX portfolio? What are they looking at?
Yeah, so I look how they tell the story of how they approached a problem, came out with different design options, and ultimately how they came down to the final solution. So you're kind of telling a story of your design process. If you got stuck anywhere, I want to know why you got stuck and how you got around it. I want to know who you worked with to help resolve that problem or come up with a design, because that shows your capabilities of collaboration. It might even showcase some leadership skills if you're pulling people together to solve a problem. So those are important things, because like Eric, I'm spending my time in a lot of meetings or putting out fires. So I want people who have some leadership skills or have the capability to go and work on something on their own and bring people together to collaborate when needed. So tell your story, be yourself, show the nitty gritty, show pencil sketches, and just tell a nice story.
What would you say about putting things in your portfolio that are from a team? How do you approach that? How do you cite it?
I like to know, what the goal was of the team, how you collaborated with the other people and what your role was, and as part of that team's collaboration. You don't need to go into detail about what everyone did, just your part and your role in there. And I don't think there's
like that. Would you kind of put in your portfolio the final outcome even though your part of it may not have been visual or may not at least
I would
appear
still-
to be that.
Yeah, I would still put the final outcome because you had a part in delivering that final outcome. Even though you may not have presented it to the board or presented it to the client, you helped get to that point and you were part of that team. And, so I still think it's important to close that story and finish it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything to add to that, Rebecca? Portfolio, UX portfolio, what are you looking for?
I really like to see it. A lot of times people talk about the work and the process, but I want to see how you define the problem that you're solving and why you wanted to solve it that way. And really just showing the work. And to me, it's not just the level of design skill or how you approach a problem. It's a level of how do you get to the actual problem that you're solving? How do you understand that? And how are you working with other people to make sure that that stays on track?
Yeah. So do you think kind of setting the goal or stating the problem in the first place and then kind of being able to measure it and say, were we successful at the end? Those pieces seem to be missing a lot of times. Yeah.
Yes. And also sometimes I like to hear stories of when people say, someone asked me to solve this problem, but what I really found was there was this underlying problem and that was the real thing. And I want to hear, well, how did you convince people to solve this other problem or that these things were related? I love hearing those kinds of stories.
Those are all the stories, right? Every client needs an app and they come to you and they need an app, but how often do they actually need an app? Like almost never, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Really smart. Good. How would you incorporate SEO into digital portfolios on websites? Danielle, how do you show off that work that you're doing?
That's a really good question too. I actually I don't have a portfolio right now that shows that. So
do you think that struggle is because it's just doesn't feel very visual? It's not a visual thing that you're outputting.
Yeah, and I mean, I think maybe you could show maybe show screenshots of your process and like how did you get to choose the keywords that you're choosing to target.
We talk about this a lot with portfolios. We kind of default to using Adobe Behance, and it's a very visual platform.
Right.
And with our UX students, we have that struggle of what do we show then in the thumbnail? And I mean, a chart or graph is very visual. And when you can show that you've increased performance or those sorts of things can be visual.
Yeah,
but it's a struggle.
Yeah, definitely a struggle, but graphs, charts, even screenshots probably would be good. I don't know.
Good. Tell your story. Yeah. Eric, would you recommend a recent graduate go into freelance, agency, or in-house work?
Oh, this is a trap. This question's a trap.
It's a trap.
But I'll navigate as elegantly as I can possibly do. But it depends on what you want to learn. Because I think just like when you buy a car, you're buying the service of that car. You're not just buying the car. You're buying the folks that are going to be there to help you with that when you need service. I liken that to each three of these routes. Each one of them will teach you something. And you're also going to commit to a team that's there. So for instance, with in-house, I know it's real important to share the success and to be to help others shine in that environment so that you can really be that team player. That it's a cliche, but that's what people want so many times. That also applies in agency, but one of the things I've found, at least in my experience, is the stakes are a little higher day to day because there's very real needs that pop up that don't have maybe a wider body of folks to help solve those needs. So you have to be very nimble. You have to be very agile with going from learning to learning and action to action, and be willing to do things that maybe you're not as comfortable with. And then on the freelance side, there's just so much initiative and so much research. When I was freelancing, I was very humbled by the amount of paperwork I was also doing, and the time tracking that I needed to do. But all three of these paths will teach you something. So long term, if you're looking to learn how to be a business person, you're going to get such a huge education by, you know, working in-house and being exposed to so many folks who know these things. The same with agency. If you want to be an owner, you're going to learn things that are going to help you to learn ownership of your own company. And then freelance, being able to work with such a variety of folks that you might encounter, and be able to articulate your ideas and be that person that can go from project to project and solve very specific problems for people. It's all of them are just such a wealth of knowledge that you'll learn something new in. So I don't really know that I'd have one to kind of pull out, but
It's my favorite answer. It depends.
I hope that was fair,
depends,
at
yeah.
least assessment.
Absolutely. Depends on a lot of things. And I guess to be conscious of your stories and what you need, as well as the company itself, and really take that time, which is hard to do when you're trying to find your first job and you also want to, you know, eat or pay rent. Yeah. Definitely tricky. Well, we are winding down on time. I can't believe that we've been here for an hour and a half. Y'all have had amazing questions. We have lots and lots more, yeah, in the Q&A. So if you asked a question, we can probably open that up and let you answer them over time and not directly right now. So we can get you those answers. We'll also have those on the website tomorrow. The event website will be sent to all of you, all the participants. You'll get an email with that, so you can kind of see the wrap up and any additional questions that got answered after hours. But right now I want to say thank you so much to our panelists. Absolutely amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much to our sponsors, AIGA Poly and the Fulton Schools of Engineering Career Center. Thank you. And of course, thanks to all our attendees, both in person and online. I think that I can say we were successful in the first hybrid digital panel this semester with our online panelists, as well as online participants and in-person panelists and in-person participants. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening. Good night.